guys, Bar from TST Industries here. Welcome to TST Garage. Today in the shop with me is Yamaha MT-07. What are we doing? We're going to be installing the TST Industries Elite-1 Fender Eliminator on this beast. In our lineup, we have three different variants of this Fender Eliminator. We have the low mount, high mount adjustable, and high mount standard. Each one of these kits has a base component. It's our closeout. This component replaces the stock of the fender. It closes out the hole left behind by the removal of the fender. It makes the area really cosmetic. It's actually texture and color matched to the undertail plastics. The entire area is left looking very cosmetic and congruent with the body lines and the design language of this motorcycle. We ship these components with all stainless hardware, and we also have these blinding caps, these little canoe clips that go in the holes should you not be using these holes for fastening one of these brackets onto it. I'll explain a little bit more during the flow of the installation. Now that I've described the base component, let's move on to the license plate brackets. Here we have our low mount bracket. It is executed in laser cut stainless steel. Then it's powder coated black for a stealthy finish that matches the undertail of this bike, and it disappears around all the other components. That's really what you want when you're hanging your license plate. The hardware is supposed to disappear and make it look very minimal on the bike from the side, from the rear. It's the most cosmetic in that way. The standard high mount, the difference between this one and that bracket is the location of hanging. The low mount hangs in this area. The high mount mounts right about here under the taillight. This one is also executed in laser cut stainless steel powder coated black, just like I mentioned for this kit. Here we have our flagship system. It's our adjustable setup as opposed to the static standard version, which is bent and is not able to be adjusted. This system comes with a hinge point that enables you to set in the hanging angle of your license plate to your liking. This setup is manufactured out of CNC machined 66-1 aluminum. It is anodized. It looks very, very techy. You have a brushed finish on the flat face of this bracket. You have TST Industries inscribed on the middle of that bracket. There are some other really nice details that we've machined into these components because we're tech geeks and we like to look at the details and get in there and adjust every little thing so that when we get these things in your hands, you really like what you get. All right. Before we dive into the actual installation flow, I just want to mention a couple things. When you ditch your OEM fender, you are getting rid of your license plate light and also your signaling system. What do we do about that? Well, in this video, we will not be covering the installation steps for the license plate light or signaling systems because we will have a separate video going over all of those components and how to install them in combination with our parts. I just wanted to let you know we do offer a license plate light that goes along with all of our kits, and we have several different signaling options for you. Whether you're using the high mount, low mount, we do have you covered. On this particular bike, currently on it, there is an integrated taillight. The taillight already has signals integrated into the capsule, so when you signal right or left, the signals are actually coming out of the taillight itself. Another option is our remount bracket that will take your OEM signals and permit you to mount them with this setup. And then this is our BL6 signal. It's one of the samples from our array of signaling equipment that we sell here at tstindustries.com. All of those will be covered in the subsequent video that will go over the lighting equipment. All right. In this particular video, we will be focusing on the high mount versions of the Fender Eliminator because this version and this version is very similar in the steps. After we've configured these components onto the closeout, we'll basically just go through one flow. We'll instruct you on how to construct everything into a chunk and then get it mounted on the bike, and no worries there. Without further ado, let's get wrenching. In the first step, we will be removing the license plate off the bike. You can choose to keep the OEM license plate holding method and reuse it with our system. We also sell really nice anodized aluminum hardware sets that match some of the components on this bike. So For this installation, we will choose to use the blue ones from our stock. The following step will involve seat removal. So first we'll grab our key, unlatch passenger seat. Then we'll grab a 5mm Allen and remove the driver's seat. Here are the two 5mm Allen screws that need to be loosened to remove the seat. Up here on the bike, we have 4 fasteners requiring a 12mm socket. 2 are right here. And we'll need to gain access to under these rubber boots. When these come out, they do have a spacer. Make sure you retain that spacer. They are very loose. If you drop it, pause, make sure you retrieve that. You will need it for reassembly. For the next step, we are going to switch to a 10mm socket. And now we are going to pull out these 4 fasteners here. These do not have spacers. We're going to perform one more tool change. We are going to go to a 4mm Allen, and we are going to pull out this fastener here, this one right here, and one right here. That completes the mechanical fasteners from the top for the right side of the side tail. We're going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to mimic those steps on the left side, and then we're going to hop below and grab some fasteners from there. So these 2 locations come out with just a screw, no spacer. On the back here, we do have spacer. Please memorize where these screws go or refer back to the video for reassembly. They do have different thread specs and different diameters, and they do need to be put back in the correct location. All right, the top unfastening is complete. Let's hop below. In this next step, we will be removing 4 rivet push type fasteners, one here, here, and on the opposite side in the same locations. Just push the center in, and then they just pop out. When you remove the 2 rearmost ones, this fender shroud will now be loose. Let it droop in the forward section, and then you pull it towards the front, and that releases it. Once these push rivets are out, now the side panels are fully unfastened. We are going to grab them right about here, pry it away from the tail light downwards until we snap out that little window that interferes and connects to the center. And now there is a series of rubber grommet and peg fasteners that are holding the entire side to the frame. So we will grab this entire section of the fairing and pull straight out 90 degrees to the center plane of the bike. And it just clears them out. There's one more here up front somewhere. And here we go. This one interfaces with this peg. And then we have this peg that interfaces with this grommet. We will repeat the step on the left side of the bike. And for good measure, we are going to take that center bracket that holds these side pieces right here and take that down so it doesn't rattle around on us. Let's hop back up to the top and take care of the wiring and take down the fender. We will need to identify 3 different cables here. One of these is this gray plug set. This is our license plate light. Up here we have a black plug set, and that is one of the signals. And here we have the white plug set, which is the other signal. Pressing down on this tab here will unlock this connector, permit you to withdraw it. We'll do that with these 2. We will unroute them from their cable routing guide here on the sub tray. This is just a C channel that gets the wires passed through. And then we have this last one here. You lift up on this tab and that clears it for you. There's one additional routing guide here. This cable management part is sort of like a clamshell ratchet, and it's got two ratchets coming towards each other. So we'll need to pry away at the teeth here. Actually, I should be able to push it out from the bottom so I could show you guys. So this is what it looks like. You want to clear it like this. If you jam your little screwdriver in here and pry around, it'll come off. I'm just gonna replace it in here in its original location. So we're ready to go back in, and that'll be that. All right, with the wiring unhooked, we'll grab an 8mm socket and then remove these two fasteners and their matching pair on the other side of the bike. Once I get to this last one, I will hold my fender suspended so it doesn't just drop. Still have one rivet fastener here in the center. That also needs to be unhooked by pressing the center. And now the fender comes down. And this panel here no longer has its aft section to hook into, so it will droop and likely come off. We just rest it here for now. We'll deal with it later. All right, back on the table here, we are now going to show you how to configure your setup and then bring it to the bike and get it mounted. As I mentioned in the intro, the closeout kit is the base component. So whether you got the standard or the adjustable, this component will arrive to you with this set of hardware. One of these push clips is for the purpose of blinding out this hole in case you are not running wires. If you are running wires, like let's say from a license plate light, this will be made use of to run your wires inside. All right, these two subsequent bolt clips will be for some of the fairings. I'll show you that in the installation flow. And each one of these washer and screw pairs will go through these mounting holes that get these fasteners replaced into the threaded holes on the subframe where the fender came out of. Let's push these aside. Now, once this is all assembled here on the table, whether you got the standard or adjustable, the subsequent steps will be exactly the same. So I will first show you how to configure the standard onto its base component, and then I will show you how to configure the adjustable. The TST logo points to the rear of the bike. The L bend of the bracket points forward on the bike, like so. We will get a washer on here and a screw. Double up for the other side. We'll hold these guys in place and thread on the nuts here. These are nylock locking nuts. They do not require any thread locking agents. They do have a locking method built in. Now we would grab a 4mm Allen for here, 10mm open-ended wrench or box wrench like this for here, tighten it up while we center it, and that would be ready to go onto the bike. Let's talk about our adjustable. It comes to you in a baggie with all these components separated. I will show you how to configure these components and then screw them together so that we have success in assembly. First, I like to lay them out in the manner in which they come together. So flat bracket towards the rear of the bike, L bracket that will get screwed to the hinge point with it sloping from top to bottom towards the rear, like so. And then our hinge points, they have a curved side and then a straight side. The straight side faces the front of the bike and the rear side is the curved. All right. This will receive washers like so with these button head screws. The remaining button heads and the washers are for mounting of this entire assembly onto our closeout. You have a countersunk screw from the front of this bracket through one of these holes on each side. For this particular setup, we will go through the middle hole on each side. And then the nylock locking nuts will go behind the L bracket, and that will just sandwich all of these components like so. So I like to build one side fully and then go on to the next side. A washer will go here on this hinge point, and then we have our button head screw that will go in here. Now this is a metal on metal connection. You have stainless steel going into aluminum. I highly recommend using a little bit of thread locking agent. Standard thread locking agent in this location is fine. Here I have just a medium strength thread locker. This particular screw uses a 4mm Allen. Now, our hinges do have a raised boss that is meant to register the hole of the L bracket. So once you drop the L bracket onto this boss, it's self-captive and you're just adding the screw through there to hold it in place. Make sure that you capture this assembly in the way I just described. Now I'm going to grab an 8mm open-ended wrench and a 3mm Allen and snug this up just a little bit. I want to leave some adjustability, but I do want to snug it up. That way we don't have a sloppy assembly, making it cumbersome for us to take this to completion. Now I am going to basically repeat all the steps I just showed you, just on the other side here. Again, curved, going towards the rear of the bike, which is this way. Again, a little bit of thread locking agent on the screw threads here. Once again, I'm going to snug this down here a little bit, leave a little bit of adjustability. We will need to adjust the width here so that it can actually interface with our screw holes here. Now this module is pretty much ready to go and be installed on here. So now we need to talk about possible thread locking of these screws into here. We once again have mechanical machine screw threads, stainless steel into aluminum. I typically like to use thread locking agents on here. However, your standard anaerobic thread lock will degrade the ABS plastic that this is made of. We had to use plastic that can be formed in this way, also get textured and color matched. So that is a limiting factor here. Unfortunately, we can't use standard thread locking. If you wish to use a thread locking agent, make sure that it's something that is plastic safe. VC3 from Vibratite is one of those nice thread locking agents. Brand new one here, I need to pierce open. If you don't have access to this stuff, I've made use of nail polish, believe it or not. That actually accomplishes what we need without degrading the plastic. If you do, for some reason, choose to use standard anaerobic thread lock, you will very likely cause craze cracking on this component, and chemical degradation of these parts is not covered under warranty, so please be advised and be careful. we are going to drop this fastener through here and thread it up to the appropriate hinge. I'll demonstrate what that will look like when it's all assembled. Now, if you've left your whole setup pretty loose, when you go to tighten these screws, there's a very good likelihood that these hinges will come off angle from each other, and then your hinge action will not work very well. So what you can do is keep this connection a little loose, loosen up the hinge, put it through its working range. This will adjust the angles of these hinge bosses to where they need to be, and then you could tighten them down. If you do still notice that you are shifting them, you could grab a 10mm open-ended wrench, and 10mm open-ended wrench will hold your hinge while you tighten it down, and then also permit you to make your final adjustment of that hinge angle so that you do have smooth hinge action. Another note I want to make here is that you are sandwiching ABS plastic material in between several mechanical parts. If you do over tighten this connection, you will stress this plastic, so please do not over tighten it. Once you get to some resistance, you need to let it go. All right. So this is what the chunk is supposed to look like after we're done with assembly. I have kept my hinge point loose because I will perform the final adjustment on the bike and then fully lock it down. So now we are going to group up the parts that we need to take with us. If you are running a license plate light, it will route like so over this bracket and into this hole, and then it will get connected to the bike in using the method portrayed in our actual lighting equipment video for this bike. If you are using our standard bracket, the wire routing is basically through this specific wiring window here into that hole, and same concept as mentioned previously. If you are not using any wiring on here, whether it be signaling system or license plate light, and you just want to close it out, one of those canoe clips will blind it out for you, make it nice and cosmetic, and prevent debris and water from going inside. All right, we have our chunk ready to go on the bike. Let's grab the appropriate tools, jump on the bike, and get it installed. So now on the bike, we will bring our assembled chunk into view. As you can see here, we have a receiving hole for one of these push fasteners. Let's reset it. It is one of the small ones. It's the one that came out of this hole originally. I'm gonna place it in that undertail hole and then insert our new chunk on top of this. Once it is bottomed out, press the center in, and now this becomes one module. Take notice here, there's a tab that fits into this slot, and then these features here cradle around the undertail under the sub tray. Let's get that put in, and now we should be bringing this entire assembly into alignment here with the closeout holes matching the hole location for the fender. Now we have equipped you with 4 of these washers and 4 of these button head screws that will now fasten this assembly to the bike. So let's do that. These require a 4mm Allen. Once you get one in, it'll be self-captive. I do not tighten these down all the way. I leave adjustability. Once again, if you want to use a thread locking agent here, you are interfacing with the ABS material. You will need to use Vibratite or another plastic safe version. Once all the fasteners are in and close to bottom out, move it around, make sure it's centered, and then go ahead and tighten it down all the way. You are sandwiching ABS material in between screw fastener, head, washer, and the frame component. Care is needed to not over tighten these connections and strain the plastic. This is looking good. All right, let's grab the side tail piece now and start inserting it back on. I'm going to start with the forwardmost grommet going onto its peg component here. I'll capture this for me in place. Now in the rear, we have several concerns. We need to make sure that this peg fastener finds its grommet hole, and then we also have this pocket that needs to interface with the taillight. Taillight has a tab here. Taillight can rotate up and down still. It's not fixed in place just yet. So we need to bring everything into alignment before we start pressing this. If you do not bring all your components into alignment before pressing, you can possibly snap this tab on the taillight. I have seen that happen. I almost caused it myself several times, so I always exercise caution at this step. Once you have it aligned, it's as easy as you just witnessed. All right, once you press all of these components together, the window in the Undertail Closeout receives the little tabs from the side fairing and snaps together basically like the OEM system. So if you were to pry this apart, it is captive everywhere, including on our closeout. And now all the lines should be perfectly gapped and you shouldn't have any misalignment. If you have misalignment at this point, I encourage you to take these covers back off, loosen up the closeout, make sure that it's hanging parallel with the center plane of the bike, and then redo it and you'll be good to go. For our purposes here, we can go ahead and replace some of the fasteners. The forwardmost fasteners here were the smaller push pins. Now on the rearmost ones, we do have a little issue. We did ditch this shroud that lived here and provided the extra thickness for the larger guys to snap in. If we were just to replace these guys in here, they're gonna be loose and you will likely lose them at some point. So the remaining 2 canoe clips from our kit will go in this place. And now this is pretty much complete. We're gonna hop up top and replace some fasteners here. Now this part here could have been inserted before these steps. I chose to do it after I already have these panels in place. Just gonna dislodge the forward peg to grommet fasteners. Get this aligned in here. If you are doing Fender Eliminator lighting, license plate light or signals, you definitely want to get your connections made before you put this back on, because this bracket obscures one of the connectors. All right, once we get this back in place, I'm going to re-engage peg to grommet connections there. I choose to start with these screws here. They do have a shoulder on them. Make sure that the shoulder fits through the plastic and engages with the metal underneath. 4mm will be the tool of choice. Bottom it out, but don't tighten it. Get these fasteners back in. Now I'm going to replace the fasteners up front by the tank. They also have a shoulder, so make sure you locate it into the plastic. Do not smush the plastic against the frame Now here in the aft section, all the way back up by the tail light, we have these self-threading looking screws that need to go through here. They do have a shoulder washer on them. Make sure you locate that shoulder washer concentrically through the sandwich of components. And lastly, we have these 4 fasteners here. They also have these spacers. If one's missing, please find it before putting it back in there. Otherwise, you will exert undue force on the plastic part and possibly cause it to be damaged. All right, now I have all of my hardware in and threads are started. So I am going to use a tool to get them seated all the way and tightened down. 10mm back here. Switch to a 12mm socket for these guys over here. All right, these are tight, these are tight. Now I'm going to use the 4mm Allen, go from front to rear and tighten up all of the remaining connections. And that's that up here, so I'm going to replace the driver's seat. 5mm Allen for this job. Passenger seat now goes on. And let's jump down here, put on our license plate, adjust the angle, and then we'll be done. Like I mentioned before, I will be using our anodized aluminum license plate hardware. I think it looks the best with our kits. It is an optional kit, but it does complete the look of our setup here. Before I take the setup to full tightness, I like to make sure that it's hanging level and equal side to side, and then I go ahead and tighten it. Now, as you can see, my hinge is still loose enough that this is able to be rotated. And you don't want that because it will always come to a stop in its lowest position, and very good chances are that during riding your suspension travel will be long enough to hit it, bend it, and then you just won't be very happy. So I think the effective range is somewhere from here to here, and it is up to you how you want to hang it. For me, this angle looks very, very good. I'm going to lock it down here and make sure that it doesn't move anywhere. Once this is locked under the normal loading of the weight of a license plate and perhaps some signaling options mounted here, this will be just fine. All right, that's pretty much it here. All right, guys, as you just witnessed, it took me about a half hour to complete this installation. We went from a giant shovel-looking fender to a sleek and sexy tail like you see here. TSTindustries.com is where you'll find these parts ready to go, ready to be sent to your door. You could also couple this system up with our signaling options or an integrated taillight or both. And we also have a whole host of other parts for this bike and other bikes that you may have in your stable. Thank you for watching. Hit like and subscribe. Drop me a comment. I love hearing from you. Thanks. See you later.